All right, so I'm going to start from the top of the list of what I can see in the chat. First question is, can we leave other things? Sorry, I'm hearing a lot of feedback. If you can make sure you're muted, thank you. Can we leave other things with paddle equipment, such as a seat to sit in? Yes, so if you're an 8-hour or an 18-hour team, you can put paddle-specific gear with your paddle stuff. So that could include PFDs, paddles. If you have a 3-person team, a third seat, it could also include portage wheels if you're choosing to use portage wheels. Brian asks, will the 18-hour racers bring the paddle bags on the bus with them? That's a good question. No, you will not. So there will be a spot at headquarters to drop off your 18-hour paddle gear ahead of when you get on the bus. And in case you didn't see that update today, there's a bus shuttle for both the 8-hour and the 18-hour, and there's different times for the 8-hour racers. So 8-hour racers, by the way, will bring their paddle stuff with them on the bus. 18-hour racers will not. There'll be a vehicle to put your paddle gear in that will be transported to the start of a paddle for you. Angie asks, will the maps have magnetic north orientation lines, or do we have to declinate? Declination in Wisconsin is very small. It's like 3.5, 4 degrees. It's something very minute. So I usually don't even worry about it, frankly. But to answer your question, all of the maps with one exception have true north. So you would technically have to adjust for declination. One of the maps is an orienteering style map where the blue arrows and lines on that map are pointing at magnetic north. So, but again, for everyone else, if that's like a question you hadn't thought about or worried about, I would not worry about it in the Midwest, like in Wisconsin. It really isn't a factor. I've never taken a bearing that's accurate to a 3-degree bearing. I wouldn't worry about that. Brian asked estimated percent that will clear. Yeah, Anna, I responded to this too. I think the 18-hour course will be pretty clearable. Certainly if you've done adventure racing before, which most of you in the 18-hour race have, there's a few that haven't, I think it's very clearable. But it's certainly not going to be all, and there's points throughout the course and ways to drop throughout the entire course. You'll get basically all the maps with one exception when you check in for the 18-hour race. 8-hour and 3-hour racers, you'll get every map when you check in. Can we use type 5 PF, or wait, can we use type V PFDs with type 3 performance? I don't, I'd have to look up that question. If Kayla, if that's the kind that inflates or like pulls out of a waist strap, I know you can't. It has to be a non-inflatable PFD. But yeah, so it has to maintain buoyancy through puncture. So meaning it can't be an inflatable type or like a pull cord type PFD. I hope that answers your question. If not, chime in with what exactly that is, and maybe I can answer that better. Is a spare bike tube necessary for riders who are riding tubeless and have a tubeless repair kit? If you have a tubeless repair kit that you trust, that is okay. But I will tell you, we've been riding tubeless for over a decade. And I've had 2 problems over about 100 races where I was really glad I had a tube. One of them, my rim bottomed out through the actual tire itself, and there's no way tubeless repair kit was going to fix that. So I'd strongly encourage you to still have a bike tube just in case something happens. But if you really trust your tubeless repair kit and it's more than just a little thing of sealant and you've got some other things to fix, actually a tire gash, then that would be acceptable. Yes, Anna wrote to the 18-hour race is clearable. Okay, next question. For the 3-hour, is it best to drop off? Oops, sorry. As questions come in, it jumps on my feed here. Oh, and Anna answers. Is it best to drop off bikes and bags at HQ and then park, or park and then walk? So for the 3-hour, I think, yeah, and what Anna says, and I'm just going to say it again because if you're not on this meeting live, you can't see the chat. I don't think you can. So yes, briefly park, check in, get your team photo taken, 3-hour racers, and then I would go park your car and just ride your bikes back up with your gear. That would be a great way to do it. If you have like mapping supplies, you can like leave them at a table or something. We'll have a bunch of tables under the tent, things like that. 8-hour and 18-hour racers, I think it would be good to, if you have any mapping supplies, drop that stuff off. You won't have your bike. So again, just send a person down and just walk. You're going to have to walk back up. for the bike, is it permissible to have a dedicated bike slash bag rack, or does all bike gear need to be carried on the person for the whole race? No, so on the gear list, it says if something is bike specific. So like you don't have to carry your bike tube with you on a trek section or the paddle section. So yeah, the stuff that's bike specific can stay with your bike. And if it's in like a saddle bag or something like that, that's totally fine. Latrines at transition areas. Yeah, most of the TAs and in the clue sheet, as Anna says, the locations that where there are bathrooms and to refill water are marked. So yeah, there are rest areas, and otherwise there's a ton of rest areas in the woods throughout the course. If you're in like a neighborhood, be mindful of that. Wait till you get to somewhere where there's a bathroom or somewhere where there's actual wilderness. Can we leave things on our bike when we stage the bike, such as food and clothes? Yes, you can leave whatever you like with your bikes, but it has to come with you. You can't leave it there and say, oh, I'll pick it up after the race. How many sections in the 8-hour race? You'll find out when you check in. It could be as few as 3, and it could be as many as a lot more than that. So we won't tell you that till you check in for the race. But there's at least, everyone knows for every race, there's at least 1 trekking section, 1 paddling section, and 1 biking section. And likely, especially for the 8 and the 18-hour races, likely more. But you don't find that. That's part of the adventure, is you find that out when you check in and get your maps and instructions.
So make sure when you check in to read your instructions very carefully.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. If this is new to you, yeah, just take the time to sit down first and read through all the instructions, compare it with the maps, and make sure you have a good sense. We can talk about one thing, which is, we talked about this in the meeting last night, the 3-hour race being in any order. So there'll be main sections that you can choose between. You don't have to do those sections in order. Best advice for first timers? That's a great question. I think the best advice for first timers is really take your time. Some of the trekking this year for the 3-hour race is, I think, significantly more challenging navigationally than it has been for the last couple years, maybe the last few years. So yeah, I would take your time when you get out there with the maps on the trekking section, because it is a bit difficult and challenging, and there's a ton of trails at the location of headquarters where there's going to be a trek. So just take your time. Don't rush through it. You're going to be you're actually going to do better if you take your time and you're accurate than if you're going too fast and you're making mistakes with your navigation. It's such a huge part of the sport, is navigating effectively and efficiently. Other questions? Oh, Anna, that's a great answer too. Thinking about if you want to cut things off or cut things
I was just
short.
gonna say, yeah, if you're a first timer, just don't plan on clearing the entire course. Just go, like, make sure you have like a sampling of all the different parts, just so you have the full like race experience. So some of the points like farther away, you might want to just cut off or drop, and make sure you get to a little bit of the track, a little bit of the bike, a little bit of the paddle, and the special challenge if you're doing the 3 or the 8 hour. And just make sure that you have the day that you want to have and have a good time. And yeah, don't worry about getting to every single point out there.
Angie asks in the chat.
Make sure that you're back by 5 p.m. Don't be late. Okay.
Thanks. Angie asked, can we grab food or sunscreen, etc. at headquarters? Not necessarily. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily, it depends on what great course you're doing, right? But I wouldn't necessarily plan on like being back at headquarters until you finish. And even if so, we don't have like a transition area where you can like leave all your gear. So I would plan on starting the race with everything you need for the race, either on your person, with your paddle gear, or with your bike. Don't leave things that you're going to need later at headquarters, because we're not having a transition area set up at headquarters. Are we suggesting? So we should clarify something, first timers, about finishing. Finishing doesn't mean clearing the course. Those are 2 separate things. We've been at races where we've been the only team that's cleared a course and there's been 60 other teams there. Lots of other teams finished, they just didn't find all the checkpoints. Finishing is just getting to the finish line under the time limit. Clearing the course is a whole nother thing. I think certainly, it's hard to say. It depends on 2 factors. If a beginning team that hasn't done this before, it's a first timer, can clear the course. And I think it depends on if you have someone that's very effective at navigating and if you have a good general sense of athleticism. I think those are the two keys. And I would actually put more weights on the navigation than the athleticism to clear any of these courses. But certainly it's possible. We've had plenty of first timers do very well and clear a course and do great. We've also had first timers only get half the points, and it just depends kind of where you're at with your skills, navigationally and endurance. More questions. Okay. Will all modes be mandatory? That's a great question. No. And I'll just speak specifically to each race. In the 3-hour race, nothing is mandatory. If 3-hour racers, you just want to go trek around and find all the trek points, and then you're like, I'm good, I'm tired, and call it a day and get your pizza or get your food truck and your beer, like, great, that's fine. And that's true for all sections of the 3-hour race. Nothing is mandatory. It's all whatever you want to get. But once you've started a section, like if you start a bike section, you can't in the middle of it decide you're going to drop your bike and go trek. You have to trek from the designated spot. So for 3-hour racers, your trek starts and ends at headquarters. If you get on your bike, you have to continue and come back to headquarters on your bike before you get sections on, let's say, the trek. For 8-hour and 18-hour racers, there are some mandatory sections. It's basically, as you now know, we're dropping you off at the bus. So the mandatory sections include those which you need to do to get back to headquarters. Nothing else is mandatory. So let's say in the middle of getting back to headquarters, there's like a trekking loop. Like, that's not mandatory. Just make sure you get back. That's the only mandatory part of the race, is making sure you do the modes that are mandatory. So 3-hour racers, frankly, you could skip paddling if you wanted to. That would be up to you. There's also a special challenge for the 8-hour and the 18-hour, or no, I said that wrong. For the 8-hour and the 3-hour, you could skip that special challenge if you like. 18-hour racers, you don't have a special challenge this year. Will spectators have accessible viewing areas? Not Anna, can you answer that? I feel like we don't have great spectator viewing areas this year, but I'll let you answer that. I think you're muted, Anna.
I'm sorry, I was racing. I was responding to someone else. I think for which level of race for the spectators?
I'm not sure, but it's probably good to answer for everyone.
Yeah, so headquarters are probably going to be the best place to view. And I do have spectator instructions for family members that come if they want to know like where the locations are. If you check in at headquarters, I can get you in like a sheet with like where people are going to be and the map and things like that. So if you come and talk to me directly, I can let you know where to go. But it's too much to try to explain where everybody's going to be at any given time. And we will have trackers on the 18-hour racers, so you'll be able to know where your team is at if it's an 18-hour race, so you can follow them and know where to find them.
I mean, honestly, right? The adventure racing, while I think it's the best sport in the world, is like probably the least best spectator sport in the world.
Friendly
I mean, I think the best way is if you're dot watching, like following the trackers of the 18-hour team. But like, I don't know, sometimes our family comes to races we do, and like we're like totally like mentally out of it and like changing clothes and putting lube on our butts. Like it's like not a fun sport to watch.
But I will say, I think there's like the transition area locations are good places to see your team coming through. So they'll be like coming in on boat, leaving on bike. They'll probably be pretty busy at the time, but yeah, there are specific locations we can give you when you come on race day. So after your team leaves, come and see us or the race volunteers, and we'll get you a map and let you know where people are going to be at approximately what times.
Luke asks about food and what kind of food tend to be successful. I think for races this long, we tend to use the kind of food that is just like bike shop food, you call it, like gels and goos, bars, stuff like that. You can get by up to 30 hours on stuff like that. Once you get a little longer than that, that's when you really want to start doing like more real food. But a lot of people just do goos and stuff like that. You're all going to get a 3-ounce thing of maple syrup in your race swag bag. And for me, that lasts me 2 to 3 hours. And I literally race eating maple syrup just because you just need the sugar to keep going, the calories. For the 3-hour race, the video talks about 4 hours. Oh yes. So we call it a 3-hour race because we think the majority of teams will finish around 3 hours, and many will finish under 3 hours. But we learned the first or second year we put on this race that, especially for that 3-hour race, which is a more first timer friendly race, people want to just have more time if they struggled with something, if they made a mistake. So we give a full 4 hours before there's any penalty for coming in late. So for all people in the 3-hour race, you start at 1 p.m. Altogether, it's a mass start. No one needs to be back before 5 p.m. You have a full 4 hours to finish. What's the width and length of the canoes approximately? I'm guessing those are 14 footers. They're decent. They're decently fast. Do you remember what they are, Anna?
I'm just
They're
looking it up.
Winonas.
I'm looking it up. Is it the Fisherman or the Minnesota 2 or?
No, it's shorter than the Minnesota 2. It's
Yeah.
not what is it? Sorry, you could look on pictures on our website to see exactly the model because we have pictures of people in canoes, but it's a nice Winona canoe. I feel like it's about 14 feet
They're
and like
pretty stable.
recreational width. Say it again?
Yeah, they're pretty stable. I mean, they're really nice to paddle. They're not super narrow. They're also not super wide. I think they're a beautiful, beautiful boat to paddle. And they're very stable too.
Yeah, Mandy, we agree. The Embark maple syrup is great. So they were great to sponsor us, and everyone gets a sample of that. We will be ordering a bunch more for some really long races we're doing later this summer. Are there time cutoffs? No, the only time cutoff is there's an 18-hour and an 8-hour cutoff to finish the paddle. We all think you're going to be in there under that, but and it'll be in your instructions. The issue is, as we're going to reuse some boats, 18-hour needs to finish basically before the 8-hour starts so we can get those boats back up there. And 8-hour needs to finish before the 3-hour starts so we can move the boats. So we will put those time cutoffs to finish the paddle. But as we did like estimated fast and slowest time, I think our slowest team will still make it in under that, trying to do the full course. If for some reason you really mess something up and like you get lost for like 2 hours, that means you probably are going to need to skip to get ahead to make sure you get that cutoff. There's no cutoff or short course in the 3-hour race. Hints about the special challenge. No, we're gonna, well, you know where headquarters is, and you know the elevation and the topography of headquarters. So the special challenge is certainly going to utilize that topographic asset. I'll say that.
Well, see, there's no special skill that you would need to practice in order to do this special challenge.
Correct. We're not, yeah.
Rubik's Cube or Legos or anything like that. So.
These are all great questions. We'll give it another minute. Any other questions in the chat, or if you want to unmute to ask something? Or if we missed something, I hope I didn't miss one in the chat. Oh, I had a question someone emailed me earlier today about that. I'll just clarify, asking about how challenging the portage is for the 8-hour and the 18-hour. And I wasn't quite sure if they meant the trail itself or just physically carrying it, but it's about 400 meters, 300, 400 meters. For both races, we're having you portage from the same spot now is what worked out with the canoe provider. And it's a designated portage route. So it's not like you're bushwhacking through the woods with these things. It's a designated portage route. And you'll just need to carry or use wheels or move your boat. Soloists, if you're in kayaks and you find another soloist that's there too, you might, like, I think they have handles on them. You might see if like it's easier to carry 2 boats with 2 people, one on each hand on the front and one on each hand on the back. That sometimes is easier. We'll leave that up to you. Pants or shorts? I always race in pants. I mean, there are briars out there for sure in all 3 races, even the 3-hour race. So if you worry about your legs getting a little cut up, wear pants. If you don't care if you get some scrapes, I mean, I was wearing shorts setting the course the other day, and I got scrapes all over my legs, and I pulled about 8 ticks off. So I'm just used to it.
If you tend to be a person who overheats really badly, it's going to be 79 degrees out there during the day. So, you know, if it was me, I tend to not do well in the heat, and I would rather just take scratches on my legs. So, and I'm not allergic to poison ivy, so I might just race in shorts if it was me. But if you're not too prone to heat, then I would definitely recommend long pants just to protect your legs.
Got some other questions that came in. Can a 3-person team use a single canoe? Yes, a 3-person team has to use a single canoe. Yeah, so the kayaks are only for soloists. 3-person teams need to use a single canoe, and please make sure you follow that rule, because we only have enough kayaks for the soloists, and otherwise they're going to be out of luck if the 3-person team takes one of their kayaks. So 3-person teams need to be in a canoe together. That's in one of the race updates. Do canoes have portage yokes? Yes, they do. They have that wooden thwart beam across the middle. So yes, you could do that. Got on late. Bus drop. Will we be transported from HQ to the start on a bus? Yes, we sent out an email this morning about bus drop times. That's only for the 8-hour and the 18-hour race. If you're in the 3-hour race, there's no bus drop. How proportional is mountain biking compared to biking on a road? You'll find out when you get the maps. We don't release that information ahead of time. One clarification: 3-hour racers do not have single track riding. There is single track trails in both the 8-hour and the 18-hour. Oh, that's a good question. Shorts and long socks or pants? Oh, Anna, are you answering this on here? We've done both. I have like these 3/4 length pants, and I wear like socks or gaiters that sometimes people wear. But it's all personal preference for that. What does the pink color on the 22 split results designate? Usually that I'd have to go back and look. It's usually a double punch, like someone punched something twice, but I could be wrong about that. I'm not looking at it right now. Usually that means it's a double punch. I'll check here if other people are writing any questions. I think I got through all of them in the chat. Again, if I missed one, they're kind of coming in rapid fire here. Yeah, weather's going to be great. So on those split results, oops. Yeah, it's a double punch, meaning you punch the same point 2 times. And that, by the way, that should never happen. So there's a couple times you come into a TA and there's like a punch at the TA, and then you're going to do a loop and come back. Only punch the first time you come in. It's in your instructions, but I'll just give you a heads up on that in advance. Yeah, Joel, you missed that. Joel, you missed that fog from 2 years ago, where everyone got lost in the middle of the night. Maybe that fog won't be an issue this year. Yeah, water sources are marked in your instructions. 3-hour racers, you should plan on water for the whole race, carrying it. There's not a water refill for you for 3-hour racers. Plan on carrying your water for the entire race if you're a 3-hour. Any last questions, everybody? We got through that in about a half an hour. That's awesome. 3-hour racers, we will have one final pre-race meeting at 12:30 on Saturday at headquarters. So make sure you're ready to go and ready to race, because that pre-race meeting is going to take us right up till 1 o'clock, and then we're going to say go from the start line. So make sure 3-hour racers, you're ready to go starting at 12:30 for that final pre-race meeting in person, not on Zoom, of course, in person at race headquarters. All right, well, I will stop the recording here because I think we're good. We'll look forward to seeing everyone out there either tomorrow night, 18-hour racers, or Saturday morning at check-in, 8-hour and 3-hour racers. Make sure you show up plenty early to give yourselves time to plan. That would be some other great advice if you're new to the sport. Get there plenty early to give yourselves time. All right, thanks, everybody.